Welcome to the Going North podcast, where you will be informed, encouraged, and empowered to embrace your dreams and advance in life through authorship. I'm your host, best-selling author of the book Stay the Course, and certified leadership trainer, Dom Brightman. Be sure to check out the goods and services from every guest, as well as the host himself, yours truly. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by yours truly, Dominic Dom Brightman's wonderful book, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Grab it on ebook, audiobook, or paperback book and share this gift to your friends, family, heck, even no matter what season it is, for that wonderful person in your life that needs to advance to their next level in their career or just needs a quick pick-me-up to get through their day and beyond to thrival level. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North podcast, we got one heck of a treat for you that's good enough to eat because my goodness, we got a professor in the house, y'all. And she's a doctor, my goodness. So we got two for the price of one, a 2-in-1 power package, y'all. My goodness. Let me tell you a bit about today's wonderful guest. This super special, awesome woman right here is the professor of English and Comparative Literature and African American Studies at Columbia University and was the inaugural chair of its African American and African Diaspora Studies Department from 2019 to 2021. And even better and not butter is that she received her BA from Harvard, where she majored in American History and Literature, and her PhD in American Studies is from Yale, and she's published widely, folks, all over the darn world on issues of race and gender, feminism, and cultural politics. And in addition, her wonderful essays and articles have appeared in the New York Times, The Guardian, Harper's Bazaar, Artforum, and numerous other publications. So let's give it up for the super special, awesome, the fabulous, joyful, and generous Dr. Farah Jasmine Griffin. How you doing today, Dr. Farah?
Oh, I'm fine, and I'm very happy to be here.
Woohoo! Happy to have you here. That's right. We have a decorated champ in the podcast house.
That's a nice way of describing. I've never been described that way.
Well, hey, a lady of your caliber with all the stuff you've done and all the stuff you're going to be doing in the future, hey, gotta give folks their roses while they're here, even though this is going to be a long way from that. You still got decades more of work to do.
I think so. I do think so, but I'll take all the roses, though.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Don't worry, we'll try to take the thorns out of them, too.
Good. Yes, that would be lovely. That would be lovely.
Oh, man. So my goodness, as with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 77 days long, and I'm pretty sure there's always some wonderful gold behind the wonderful curtains of accomplishments. So mind filling in any cavities I may have missed about you?
Oh, I think you got the important things. I'm a native of Philadelphia, though I live in New York, but Philly is always home, and that's not usually in the biography, but is a very important part of who I am.
Oh, yeah, that's right. With brotherly love and cheesesteaks, the land of Philly.
Yes, indeed.
That's right, the true cheesesteaks, and then went all the way up north to the York of New.
Right, I did, and I didn't abandon Philly. I just say that I have two homes, two loves, my hometown and my the city that I came to as an adult.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, did you ever always see yourself becoming a professor, educating the masses and the molasses when you were younger, like the age of 13? Did you ever see yourself where you are today?
Not at all. I had no idea of what it took to become a professor, and to me, when I was growing up, I thought of professors as all white men. I knew I wanted to be a writer. Even at 13, I wanted to be a writer. But I didn't think about becoming a professor until I was in college, and two of my professors suggested that I consider it as a career. It was never anything that I saw myself doing.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about. That encouragement, indeed. My goodness, my goodness. Yes, it is. So I guess how did it feel to really break through that? I guess that mental lid, that mental glass ceiling of the picture of a professor as a old white guy. And now it's like, yeah, nah, melanin's in the house now, y'all.
Well, I was fortunate to be in college at a time when the professors, the two professors that encouraged me, one was a European from Germany, and the other one was an African American. He was a historian, the late Nathan Huggins. And there was only one Black woman professor at Harvard at the time, Eileen Southern, but there were a number of them, young Black women, who would come through to give talks or who were on fellowships. And they were always so lovely and generous with their time with a young undergraduate, so that they helped me change my idea of what a professor could be, and certainly what being a professor was becoming, because they were already starting to teach at universities and colleges throughout the country. So I kind of began to have role models in them, so that by the time I applied to graduate school, it didn't, I didn't have that same sense that it was only old white men in tweed jackets who smoked pipes who were professors. There were some pretty fly, beautiful, brilliant Black women also.
That's right, indeed. That's right. The fly black girl magic, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed. With all the education. That's right.
Exactly, exactly. So I looked up to them, and they were very much, good mentors. Even if they weren't at the university, they were always willing to encourage young women who were following in their wake. And so that was a good thing. One of them I remember in particular, Valerie Smith, was a very young professor at the time, and she's now president of Swarthmore College. But she was like a big sister to me when I was trying to, navigate these waters.
Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about. The big system magic. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And the beautiful thing about it is, I'm pretty sure you're a role model giving some wisdom to those coming behind you.
Certainly have tried to pay it forward. That's been a very important part of doing what I do. So yeah, and it's been good because I now see my former students, who have become professors and who are now colleagues all over the country. So it feels good. It feels like it's a kind of multi-generational, project of bringing us into the academy and changing that picture of what a professor looks like.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. And it's definitely a welcome change, at least in my humble opinion, because, hey, we need that around the globe and help folks realize, hey, there's more than just a classic tweed jacket and a pipe sort of thing. Like, nah, fam, can be fly and young and black and beautiful and all the wonderful, good stuff it did. So, my goodness, so with all of the wonderful class of you've taught and are probably going to teach in the future, is there any three big major lessons that stick out to you from your time as being a professor?
Well, I always teach a survey course on African American literature. It's a 1 year survey course. I usually teach one semester. The first semester goes from the 18th century through the Harlem Renaissance, and the second semester goes from the Harlem Renaissance to up to the contemporary moment. I love that class, because you get to read so much, and also because it's not only students who are majoring in literature, right? Or majoring in African American studies. I get all kinds of students in that class who just want the exposure. And so that's one of my favorite classes. I taught another class on justice, on kind of Black writers and justice. And that was a favorite class because, again, I had really smart students, but they were graduate students from the Divinity School, Union Seminary and the School of Education. And so I find that that stimulates me when they come from all those different fields. And then I had one class that I couldn't believe. It was a class of 19 students, and 17 were young Black women. And one was a young Latina sister, and one was a Black man. And I've never in my life, before or since, had a class like that. And they were quite remarkable. It's one of my favorite classes, and I look back on that fondly.
Beautiful indeed. It's like, hey, hey, I see more of me in here. Hooray.
Yeah, and they were just, I have a funny story about them. They I taught the class, they did these amazing presentations, and then usually at the end of the semester, people can't wait for the class to be over. But they came to me and they were like, Professor Griffin, we need an extra class. And I was like, extra class? It's May. What are you talking about? We're not having any extra classes. I'm ready to get out of here. And they were like, no, no, we have to have an extra class. And I said, well, tell me why. And it was right after Beyonce's Lemonade dropped. So they were like, everything we've read in this class, is important to this thing, Lemonade, that Beyonce just did. And we have to talk about it. And we want to talk about it in this class. So I told them that they had to take it over, like they would be in charge of that class because I was done. My syllabus was through. And they did. They took it over and they showed how all the books that we'd read related to some part of, the film and the CD or the album. And they did such an amazing job. They really set a high standard. They set the bar very high. And it was a lovely way to end that semester.
That's what I'm talking about. That's right indeed. Sign of a good professor is that they're helping the students embrace creativity.
Yes, absolutely. So important. So important. Since the pandemic, I've actually included a creative option or a creative assignment where the students, whether they think of themselves as creative or not, respond to, in addition to their final paper, there's a creative project where they find some way to respond to a reading or the readings that we've done using their creativity. And that has been an assignment that was born in spring of 2020, but that I will hold on to, I think, now, always, always, because it just gets them thinking differently, and their assignments were really creative and just allowing them to see that they had something to say and that everyone has a creative spark inside of them.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And a beautiful way to pivot too, because sure it's been intense when it first hit everybody with the whole 2020 Rona nonsense. And then it's like, okay, the initial shock is over. Like, what do we do next? It's like, oh yeah, Beyonce Lemonade. Kids loved it. Let's see here. Oh, let's give them a creative option via the virtual.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think when we were all in shock, all of us all over the world, and sent back home to wherever we lived, and those of us who were able to continue to work and meet each other virtually. As a teacher, I was most concerned with the well-being of my students, and it forced a level of creativity, thinking about how to do things differently. The doing things the same old way just wasn't working anymore. And I, wanted to keep them engaged. So I found that that crisis of the pandemic, as devastating as it was, and some of my students were sick themselves or losing family members, and just wanted that time in class to be a space that they felt taken care of and cherished, and where they could just step outside of whatever was happening for an hour and come together with this group of people that they shared an experience of reading with. But I think we were all changed by it. And what we realized is some things were working just fine, but some things were already broken. And maybe this was a chance to redo them. And I think that certainly is the case with education.
Oh yeah, definitely can say that again because, like, I guess in a way the pandemic forced folks to not only pivot but also to be more nimble and agile with everything.
Absolutely. Those are exactly the words, more nimble and agile, more flexible, able to kind of switch directions when need be based on what the times, and situation were demanding of us. I think it definitely required that. It called on us to do that, and to be resilient to the extent that we could be.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's a big part of basically your life now since you're an aspiring yogi. It's like, hey, yoga, history. It all goes together.
It does all come together. I'm always aspiring to be a yogi, and no matter I've been practicing yoga forever, and I'm still not there. Trying to find that unity and balance. Striving for it is an aspiration.
But it'll be fulfilled in the future. It'll definitely be fulfilled in the future. So, my goodness, so with all the flexibility and everything you've gained from, I guess, these past couple years, you also decided to put pen to paper and put another wonderful book out there as well. Read until you understand. That's right.
Mm. Yes, so I've been working on this book and thinking about it. I've been working on it since 2016. During the 2016 presidential campaign is when I first started thinking about it. But again, it was one of those things with the pandemic. And I had drafts of chapters, but all of my travel stopped. Like, so all that time that I spent in airports and on airplanes and flying around giving lectures, all that stopped, and I had some quiet time, to think. Still at work, still in Zoom meetings and teaching and taking care of my family, but at least I wasn't, on the road so much. And it gave me time to finish that book. And I think that being in the pandemic and also the sort of protest of the spring following George Floyd, that those informed and shaped the book as I finished at that time, um, in ways that would not have been the case had we never experienced those things. I think it would have been a different book had I not finished it in the spring of 2020.
Oh, wow, yeah, because that definitely rocked the world indeed, that whole situation, because it was really just a powder keg waiting to explode, and the whole world couldn't ignore that situation.
Right, right, absolutely. So many of the things that I was writing about in the book were kind of backstory leading up to it. And there I'd been kind of living that history and the way that Black writers have talked about so many of those issues. And there, all of a sudden, the world was confronted with it and responded in the midst of a pandemic. And so the book had to reflect that as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And what I love about the book is that, in a way, it's a kind of a tribute to your father, too, because since he was so big into reading.
It's definitely a tribute to my father, who died when I was 9, but who was my first teacher and who was, as you say, he's a voracious reader. And so I started thinking that, yes, I have this training, as a college professor who teaches literature, but that my love of this particular body of work and my love of African American history came to me way before I even knew what a college professor was. And it came to me through my father. So he's a big figure in my life, even though I lost him when I was very young. And he's a big figure in the book. And so the book is, you're right, in many ways, it's a tribute to him and also to the community that supported and took care of my mother and myself after my father died.
Amen to that. Amen to that. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Yeah, because it does take a village.
It takes a village. It takes a village. And, my mother was she's still alive. So I'm very fortunate. And she was an incredible parent. But we really were held up by my family, my mother's siblings and her, my grandmother, but also by our neighbors who just came together and really supported us and, offered tremendous amount of love because, following the sort of sudden and unexpected death of my father. So I think it could have been much worse if we were in a more hostile community or we didn't have family like we had.
definitely, definitely. And just even some of the wonderful stories shared in the book too about just the whole growing up and especially the classic I believe it was I forgot what I think it was a Pledge of Allegiance if I'm not mistaken you weren't a fan of as a kid.
Yes. Right. I thought when I wrote that, I was like, these kids think Colin Kaepernick was the first one, you know.
Nope.
Um, no, no, because in third grade, I didn't stand, second grade actually, I didn't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Star Spangled Banner, and it caused a problem in the school. And teachers, the administration called my mother, and my mother was like, "Farah, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, Daddy said I don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing the Star Spangled Banner because we have a problem with our country. It doesn't treat us fairly." And so my mother, who's always the diplomat in my family, she said, "Okay, okay." She said, "Well, why don't we do this? We'll have a compromise." She said, "Just do like the little Jehovah Witness boy in your class does." She says, "He doesn't say the Pledge of Allegiance, but he stands up." He stands up, and he stands up for the national anthem. So you stand up, but you don't have to sing that song, and you don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance if that's what you believe. So that's how we solved that. And I was like, that was decades before Colin Kaepernick.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it's like that's the thing people need to remember. It's like, hey, it's great to have that in the modern era too, but it's like, hey, it started way before, decades before, like having
Way before.
like way before.
Yeah, so much started way before, and we are sort of unaware of it, that we actually stand in a very rich legacy, very rich legacy. And I hope that the book shines a little light on that.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially with some of the authors that you highlighted throughout the book too.
Yeah, there's one chapter on rage and resistance that was one of the last chapters I wrote, and I was writing it as we were in the middle of the kind of Black Lives Matter global marches and protests and everything. And I was trying to find a kind of contemporary example, and then something said, "Why don't you go back and talk about the history of resistance and in Philadelphia, the city that I grew up in?" So I write about 19th century writer Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, a poet, a contemporary of Douglass and other well-known abolitionists, and her own activism and the activism of that community of radical abolitionists in Philadelphia who, when the fugitive slave law was passed and slave catchers would come to Philadelphia to take people back into slavery, those people, most of them, many of them Black and with some white Quaker allies, they were like, "No, that's not going to happen here. You're going to have to come through us, to get this person. This person is free." And just that kind of audacious willingness to stand up to injustice that I was seeing in young protesters every day in the spring of 2020, I realized that was also part of a legacy that we've had since we came here. We've been resisting racial injustice.
Oh yeah, definitely, and amen to that, and kudos to you for actually bringing that up because it's like, yeah, it's always good to bring up contemporaries, but hey, you still have to remind folks of where we've come from and where we're going and what we still have to do because it's far from over.
Right. Far from over, far as we learn every day, but we were, when I try to point out this history, and my first chapter is called Legacies of Love and Learning, is that this history and this body of writing, that it's part of a legacy, that we inherit, that we step into, we're born into, and that it is our inheritance. And that's what I posit in the book.
Oh yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right. The legacy of learning, indeed. So that's right, folks. Y'all better cop this book, y'all. It's good stuff indeed. And she even reads it too. So if you're on the go, you can hear more of this wonderful, wonderful professor's voice in your ears through Audible and other audiobook sites.
Yes, thank you. I so enjoyed recording it. And that was, my husband was teasing me, I've told him, I said, I think I have a new career. I mean, if this professor thing doesn't work out, I'll just start reading some books.
Well, that's good, and I'm glad you have a love for it too, because it's actually it can be real tiring if you're not preparing yourself for it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, my goodness. So, with writing a wonderful book like this and all the wonderful stories you had that you added to it, what was probably, I guess, the hardest part about choosing which books to highlight and which stories to add to the book? Because this could be easily 1,000-page book right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're so right. I mean, there were so many examples and so many things that I could have put in that I didn't put in. And basically, I sort of chose books that I thought spoke to each other. Um, and it was especially helpful if, it was clear in the book that the later writers had read some of the earlier writers and were responding to them in some way. So that became a way to help hone down and narrow down what it was that, who I chose, but I could have chosen twice as many. There could be volume two and three. There's so many writers who could have been here. And so I hope that this will just kind of spark people's interest and that they will look for both the writers who I talk about, but also some of the ones who didn't make it in the book. They can find them in the bibliography.
Oh, yeah. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right. I can get your consciousness EXP up indeed. Some true consciousness, that is. That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness. So, and speaking of books, fun question I've been asking authors recently since books are food for the mind. If your particular book, Read Until You Understand, was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If it were food, what would it be and why? Oh, that's such a good question. And that's such a hard one. It would be something. Okay, I'm gonna say a sweet potato or something made out of a sweet potato. And this is why. It's very nourishing. There's lots of nourishment, but it's also very tasty, very good to eat. It's not like getting your nourishment through something that is not you don't want to eat. So it's very good to eat, full of nutritious ingredients. And I would say, because I also find sweet potatoes to be very beautiful, especially when they're cooked and you cut them open and they're just beautiful. The color is so bright and beautiful. I hope that the writing is beautiful and inviting. So that's what I'd say. A good old baked yam, or a yam made into candy sweet potatoes, or sweet potato pie, or however you like your sweet potato. That's what I'll choose. That was hard.
But that was a darn good answer, though. That's right, folks. If you love some yams or sweet potatoes, you're definitely to pick up this book indeed. That's right. That's
There you go. Right. That's it.
That's right. It's Patty LaBelle approved, y'all. That's right.
Exactly. And Patty makes a cameo in the book too, because I talk about how the only time in my life that I played hooky from school and I didn't have any money, I was with my friend from my neighborhood. She it was right toward the end of school year, and she said, "Let's get off, let's get off the bus." And we got off the bus, and for some reason we went to this kind of expensive department store. They were all over the country, I think, but in Philadelphia, it was on Chestnut Street. It's called Bonwit Teller, and we went to Bonwit Teller in the morning. And I've always loved shoes, so we went to the shoe department, and we were in. I was in ninth grade. I was maybe 14. I went to the shoe department, and it was the middle of the week. Nobody was in there. A couple of socialite women, but there was Patty LaBelle in the shoe department, and she was with two or three people, maybe security or something, and she was buying shoes. And so I went up to her, and I had my little notebook from school, and I said, Miss LaBelle, can you sign? Can I get your autograph? And she said, of course, baby, you can have my autograph. She said, but why aren't you in school? And I was like, I'm in trouble because Patti LaBelle's going to tell my mother that I was not in school. And I'm supposed to be a good girl going to school every day. So, yes, can't be a Philly book without a Patti sighting in there.
Oh yeah. I'd probably been like, oh, this Patti LaBelle, like, whoop, who? Wait a second. Like, this must be a prank call.
I know. I know. I was just like, my mother probably knows Patti LaBelle and I don't know it.
Oh yeah, back to that whole "it takes a village" thing, right?
Exactly. And Patti was part of the village. She was going to get on the radio on WDAS and say, you know what happened this morning? Guess who I saw?
Oh, that is hilarious. That is awesome. To be like that too. Sometimes just be trying to skip class, thinking, "Yeah, we all cool now," and it's like, "Oh, celebrity pops up." It's like, oh, oh, darn, they popped up at the school or popped up in front of you. It's like, oh, darn, probably should have never played this hooky frill after all.
Exactly. He's like, what was I thinking? Who thought this was a good idea?
Oh man, what's I'm talking about, indeed. So since you're in the middle of promoting this one, I'm pretty sure you got another book cooking up in your mind. So any tidbits of what to expect of the follow-up book to this, or if there's another project completely different from this one you're working on?
Yeah, well, it's hard when you just finished a book, you've given everything. I mean, you've given all you have to give. So it's hard to really be immediately into another book. I do have some projects. I have a collection of essays that will come out. And so that's, one thing I'm sort of working on those that are about music and literature and politics and all kinds of things. And then there's a series of books that Penguin Press is going to be putting out of small books about African American figures, whether they are artists or political figures or figures who are significant in history. And I'm going to do one of the books in that series on Toni Morrison.
Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about. That's going to be hotter than fish grease, I imagine.
I hope so. I think it will be. I think it will be. I think I have something to say. I hope I do.
Oh, it ain't no hope you do. That's right. That's right. You the good doctor. You got something to say. It's something good. That's right, indeed. Because the good news is this ain't even your first book. It ain't going to be your last either. You got all this other wonderful work out there. You got prolific status.
Well, I think that I'm one of those people who feels like I'm not doing what I should be doing in the world if I'm not writing. And I've been blessed that I've been able to kind of answer that call and continue to write. And I hope you're right. I certainly I hope to write until the very end. And I hope that there will be people who want to read. I've been very fortunate with this book in that I'm very grateful to have so many wonderful readers who responded so well and so beautifully to the book. And so I hope to keep them engaged.
That's right. With all the rings, indeed. That's right. Keep them all engaged. That's right.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, man. So, my goodness. So, speaking of all these books you've been writing and this wonderful promotion that you've been doing for the book, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on these interviews?
Oh no, each interview has been so different and it's been really it's been fascinating for me to learn. Like I would have never guessed what kind of food would this book be. So each one has been, I think each interviewer has been unique and has asked me wonderful questions, nothing that I would have thought about. And each podcast has a different audience. So, the interviewer knows what their audience tends to be most interested in. So it's given me a chance to really talk widely about the book, about, the craft of writing, about becoming a writer and about the specifics of this book. It's been a real learning experience for me.
Yeah, that's right. With all the learning indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Sweet. So, in speaking of learning, the beautiful thing about all your success is that I'm sure there's been some setbacks along the way. So, what has probably been your greatest setback that actually led to your greatest success thus far?
I think every time I've experienced a rejection, if you are writing and putting stuff out in the world, there are journals that, you submit an article and it doesn't get accepted, or you apply for some funding and you don't get the funding, or prizes are awarded and you don't get the award. Um, I think that each one of those things, all writers, we all experience those. And for me, those have all been, um, painful experiences, but ultimately good ones. Sometimes, if I applied for something and didn't get it, it was a project that I really wasn't that committed to anyway, or it was a project that morphed into something that I should have been doing all along. Or if I submitted something and it didn't get accepted for publication in one place, I found a better home for it. And sometimes, I can remember one rejection. I'd written something for a book that, and the person asked me for it. And then when they read it and decided it didn't fit with what they wanted to do in this collection they were publishing, and I ended up publishing the piece elsewhere in another journal. And it became one of my more important articles. And I don't know that that other book ever came out. And if it did, it wasn't something that was on my radar. So, I was better off not being in it. So I think that there's rejection all along the way, and we grow from it, we get better from it. You can't be, it's part of the process. You can't be destroyed by it. And you have to believe in the value of what you're doing, and also know what you're doing well enough to know if, in fact, it needs to be changed or if it just needs to find a different home.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And love what you said there about heck, it's just probably needs a better home indeed. Cause you're so right. Sometimes like, oh yeah, a no means not yet. It's like, oh, we need a better home here. It's like a, it's like a better version of the Goldilocks story. It's like, hey, this bed is just right, metaphorically speaking, without breaking and entering, of course.
Right, right, without breaking and entering and taking other people's stuff. Which is the moral of that story.
Exactly.
Goldilocks is always taking other people's stuff.
That's right. Gold to get locked up. Let me stop.
Exactly. She just assumes it's theirs, it's hers for the taking.
That's right. Just gonna discover some land real quick, you know?
Exactly. And just call it her own. This feels right.
Oh shit, this porridge is fire. This is lit. Alright, cool.
Oh,
Yeah. I have no idea where that came from, but yeah, good times.
but it was right on time. There's one of the writers that I write about in this book, Toni K. Bombara. She used to tell a version of that story that was basically just what you and I are saying about it. Like, let's just think about that Goldilocks for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. From one side, it's like, oh yeah, this is peaceful, find a comfortable place to stay. On the other side, it's like, hey, these bears worked hard for that. Like,
That's right. It's theirs.
exactly. Busy stealing.
Exactly. Just thinking it's yours, that you have right to it. Getting in somebody else's bed.
That's right. Should call Columbus Day Goldilocks Day, right?
Right. There we go. It's all in the same lineage.
Oh man, that's right, Dave. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're in the year of 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
That you're fine as you are, that you're fine as you are, that you might have all these sort of insecurities, and that's normal, but that you have within you everything you need to be who you want to be in the world. And that doesn't mean that you don't still need to grow or still need to learn. There aren't some things you need to read, some people you need to learn from, but you have the capacity to find those things and to be discerning enough to listen to the advice that doesn't mean you harm, but that you have everything you need, that you were made with everything you need to be who you were meant to be in the world. That's the advice I think I'd give.
Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. Powerful advice indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, gotta watch out for that advice that may sound good later or sound good now, but it's really truly bad. Hiding in disguise, yo.
Exactly. Exactly. And really don't listen to that advice that tells you you need to be something that you are not. you know that's not that's not good advice at all. You listen to the advice that helps you be a better you, but not advice that would suggest you need to be something else.
That's right. That's right, indeed. She preaching, y'all. That's right. That's right. Just because everybody else want to be a unicorn doesn't mean you too need to be a unicorn. That's right.
Right.
That's right. Get some butterfly wings, or maybe be a rhino with butterfly wings instead, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed. It's not all about the unicorns. They got the marketing now.
That's right. They got the market. They really have the marketing now. But there's other kinds of magical horses out there. So
Oh yeah, that's right. Be another magical horse. That's right. Be a tricorn.
mhm, right, tricorn. What's the one with wings? Pegasus, right? The one with wings. There's a whole lot of options. In a world full of unicorns, be a Pegasus or something.
That's a one-liner. That's right. That's right. That's right. Get them wings, y'all. That's right. And then fly away from the noise, y'all. That's right. That's right. And be like Dr. Fair and soar above the nonsense. Write books. Educate the masses. That's right, indeed. Hand them molasses, indeed. Well, speaking of
Mm.
educating the masses, for those who want to buy some copies of your marvelous books and gift them to some friends and family and keep up with all the wonderful things that you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, if you have a favorite independent bookstore, I would encourage you to use that because independent bookstores have been so lovely to me. You can buy it directly from the publisher, the Norton, W. Norton, the publisher. You can buy it directly from there. If Amazon is your go-to, you can buy it from Amazon, or you can buy it from one of the like books.org that will link up with independent bookstore and get you your book in a timely manner.
Woohoo! That's right, you heard it right, folks. If you know an independent bookstore, find them, buy from them, keep them alive for y'all. Keep them afloat, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, Amazon's amazing, but hey, like independent bookstores, they aren't building giant phallic symbol rockets to go to the moon. That's right. That's right, indeed.
Exactly. And if there's a black owned bookstore in Philly, we have Harriet's and we have Uncle Bobby's. And it doesn't have to be a black owned bookstore, but a bookstore that carries black authors that you want to support them because they support us. So if you haven't found one in your community, hopefully that'll be something you can spend some time doing.
There you go. That's right. Support us, y'all. That's right. Support the chocolate, the many shades of melanin. That's right. Caramel gets support too, y'all. That's right. That's right indeed.
Absolutely.
That's right indeed. Heck, maybe even white chocolate, you know? Might be have some mixture in there.
Right. Get it all.
That's right indeed. With all the cookies and the cream. Let me stop. Oh, man. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So, any parting words before we close up shop, Dr. Farah?
Well, just thank you so much for spending this time talking to me. I've enjoyed it a great deal, and keep reading. Read until you understand.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast to do something that'll take yourself to the next level. And for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can not only catch the fire that is on this podcast, but can also be inspired to be their best. Advance others to advance yourself.